she's probably like dating her isn't gonna work out. Like, if you've got nothing in common that you guys can be friends with and do together, and you just end up fucking, you know, like you're hooking up with this girl because you think she's hot. Like, this is not gonna work out long term unless, like, both of you are gone out of the house like 20 hours of the day. So that's what you deserve. Exactly. Yeah, that's my advice. There's no common ground. Yeah, exactly. And so it's no fucking sounds okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. I married my best friend. Yeah, I mean, that's the way it should be. You ever look up a hot girl from high school? 9 out of 10 times they're fat with 4 kids from 3 different dudes. Yes. Oh, yes. I know. And it's happened to me. And it's crazy, isn't it? It really is. But I don't know what else to say.
Pick your hero or villain. I'm not judging.
University instructor caught on camera attacking an Indian student wearing a MAGA hat.
Pullman is farm country and is home to Washington State University, a campus that's focused on academic excellence and is supposed to be welcoming to diverse values and ideas.
But
so I was walking like this, my head down.
That's why Jay Sonny says he never imagined his political leanings would make him a target.
Patrick just...
I could have imagined that.
Just probably hates Trump.
After a long day at work, the WSU junior says he got ambushed and jumped by Patrick Mahoney and Gerald Hall.
Patrick,
30 seconds
ripped the hat on my head.
For wearing this bright red Trump cap.
He said to me, "Go get it, bitch." Punched me a bunch of times on the back.
Sonny says they unleashed a vicious beatdown all...
So many powerful souls here. And I have come
So this is the pipe bomber from the January 6th.
The media is truly the enemy of the people, somehow making their few remaining viewers even stupider, as they finally caught the guy that...
I gotta hand it to the media.
2,
They've managed to do something that science has never been able to. They've taken something with a value of 0, which is their credibility, and they've managed to somehow divide it. They're cutting 0 in half all the time. It's impressive.
This place allegedly left behind the pipe device in D.C. on the 6th of January.
Yep.
As the feds have arrested...
They got his ass.
For planting the pipe.
Brian, you idiot.
30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs is charged with...
White man? What? I saw this. This is what it's about.
Cole Jr., 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device.
Why would you say that he's white? Why? Like, what's weird about this is that you don't have to say a person's race. It shouldn't really matter, right? I mean, like, why would you say this if you weren't certain about it? I think that the reason why this happens, by the way, is that there's like, and I do think that, by the way, I do think the media intentionally tries to inflame these conflicts on purpose. They are dishonest in the same way that they lightened George Zimmerman's skin whenever he shot Trayvon Martin. Like, this was very evident. I think it happens on a regular basis. It's true. But at the same time, I think that a lot of them just simply pull, police records. And what I've heard, I don't know if this is still true, but what I've heard is that a lot of police records, the default race is white. So anytime that anybody is booked, if the fields are not filled out, it will automatically default to white. So there's a level of plausible deniability here. But with CNN, I think they've lost all of their goodwill. Stop making excuses. I'm not making an excuse. I'm explaining why it could happen in a way that is fair, reasonable, and provides as much context as possible to the conversation. If that's upsetting for you, you need to go lay down and take your medication.
This artifact is quite powerful. And when CNN isn't calling him a white man...
And they're wrong for saying it. I'm not saying that they're right for saying it. What I'm doing is I'm explaining how it happens and the different explanations for why it could happen. It's like I'm explaining the chain of events.
They're writing entire articles about it without once even showing his image, as all their articles are headlining the man's massive images, and at the same exact time, other outlets seem to know exactly what he looks like, no matter...
Yeah, the reason why they do that is because of racial politics. once you understand that a lot of these mainstream media organizations, especially MSNBC and CNN, like ABC is also pretty bad, as soon as you realize that the way that they cover and discuss anything that is an interracial violence thing is by intentionally misrepresenting and presenting it in the most, racially biased way possible. Once you understand that and you look at it through that lens, everything that they do makes sense.
How much you hate the mainstream media, you don't hate them enough. As one slip up might
Fox
be
does this all the time. I mean, like, I'm sure they do, but like in the instances where, like, I'm sure that like you're trying to be like, oh, well, both sides do this. It's bad no matter who does it. Now, in my opinion, I think that it's more problematic. I think the problem is much more pervasive with left-wing people. I do. I think it's much worse. But it's also bad with right-wing people too. It just doesn't. I don't think it happens as much.
Mistake, but they race swap so many suspects, you'd think it's a Netflix adaptation. As remember that shooter in Manhattan? The initial images came out of a man with an afro.
They do know what he looks like. Sunglasses, mustache, male, possibly white.
The fact that they knew he had a mustache just shows that they saw the image, but decided the narrative was more important to protect than their own integrity. As even
the only way that I could give this any credibility on their end is if they were just reading a police report and the police report gave a description, and as I said, it auto-filled the race field to white. That's the only way I could justify this, and I'm not even saying that's what happened. But like that's the only way I could guess.
And in the article they have up today, you gotta get to the bulk of their reporting about everything except race.
Bullshit. I think it's
until
bullshit
they
too.
finally show his face.
Yeah.
And it would be one thing if CNN just wanted to destroy their credibility, but this is an epidemic we see with most left-leaning news outlets.
Yeah.
Remember the guy throwing Molotovs over in Boulder,
Oh,
Colorado?
true.
Later known as the illegal Egyptian immigrant Mohammed Salman? Well, here comes MSNBC's reporting on the video everybody already saw. Just think of all the lies the left could get away with.
I mean, again, like the problem is that, like, if I looked at that image, I'd say that's a white guy, right? But the problem is that there are so many instances of this happening, and I think that whenever there is an instance of a person being misrepresented, it's always in this direction. And I think that that's the problem, is that like it's easy to forgive a mistake or a clerical error, but whenever this is like a systematic pattern of errors that occur in one direction every single time, basically, right? I mean, it's only 95% now. Let's say that, or 90%. It's so overwhelmingly on one side. I mean, at a certain point, like, it's probably not a mistake, right? It's systematic. Yeah, I think it's systematic.
If social media and camera phones weren't a thing, or at the very least, Elon Musk didn't buy X, enabling us to freely share information without Facebook fact-checkers telling us the facts.
This is also very true, too. It's that Facebook and, what do you call it? Like Facebook and all these other platforms, all of them have been totally like controlled. And I think that Elon Musk buying Twitter really did. I think it was like a timeline shift. Because if he had never bought Twitter, we would still be getting banned for saying that there's two genders. We would still be getting banned for, making like a racial joke or something like that. Like, I don't think people understand, like, for whatever you think about Elon Musk, you think he's an asshole, you think he's an idiot, you don't like because he cheated in PoE, anything like that. I really got to say that, like, he would have to do a lot worse than that for me to, like, roach out on him after he effectively saved free speech on the internet, which is what I think he did. And I think that that really shifted the entire discourse of politics, of culture, of everything. I think it was massive. And so if you care about freedom of speech, you should appreciate that.
Stops the spread, not because any long-term
That's what I would
science,
say.
but because the Democrats on TV said so. As before the official reports on that terror attack in Colorado came out, Most everybody already saw that viral video on social media.
Yeah.
But MSNBC wants you to forget what you saw and only believe what they say, because the current thing is controlling the narrative around race. As it's bad enough certain police chiefs refuse to release...
Citing racial bias, San Francisco will end mugshots release. I mean, basically, anybody that does this is like, because at this point you're trying to make the government operate to create a racial bias. Like, that's really what you're doing. You're trying to create a racial bias by not showing certain things. And what they're really trying to do is they're trying to remove information from the public in order to make the public not come to certain conclusions. So it's the government that's trying to manufacture propaganda through a second-order effect of creating the source material and then having that be flawed or incomplete so people can't draw conclusions they would normally draw. This also has happened, I think it happened in Sweden or Norway, I forgot which one, and it was kind of a while ago. It might have not been that country, but in some of those countries, they stopped reporting race statistics for this reason. In my opinion, if it was up to me, I would put the people that made these decisions in jail. I would put them in jail, and I would charge them for some sort of crime that would keep them in jail forever. Because what they're fundamentally doing is they're trying to subvert the American public. They're trying to manipulate the American public. They're trying to weaponize their position of law enforcement in order to basically force an ideology on the people. You're just manipulating forever? Yeah, of course. Why let them out? Because why let somebody that's going to do that out? Because then, if you don't do that, and somebody knows, like, fuck, I better not do this, or they're going to put me in there forever, I think that's a pretty good incentive not to do it, right? Does that deserve jail forever, though? It does. And let me explain the reason why. Whenever you subvert people, you take a position that you have a responsibility to the public in. And then you take advantage of that to manipulate the public and to fulfill your own social and political goals with that. You have outsourced that manipulation to thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people. So whenever you make bad decisions, and those bad decisions have millions of victims, I think that, yeah, there's a scalar for that. Absolutely.
Shots of dangerous criminals.
And I think also, like, we're in a position where government officials should be, to a degree, scared of population and scared of making bad decisions. Now, I don't think that, they should be assassinated or anything like that. That's crazy. But I think that they should be held accountable. And the problem now is that government officials never feel any level, and this is also true with business owners too. This is not unique to government officials. Like, right now, there are very few limiters on what somebody who is very wealthy and powerful has in terms of, like, what they can make decisions on, right? Because there's so many levels of obfuscation and displacement on that accountability. And what I'm saying is that if you want to have good behavior, if you want to prevent bad behavior, tie a direct personal negative consequence to that negative behavior, and you're going to have that.
Protect racial narratives.
You see black and brown men all the time who are, you see these mugshots either on television or
kind of a pretty big self-report, isn't it?
Movies, you name it, the media source, and the mind begins to associate that group with that type of activity.
Maybe they wouldn't.
So this is it, right? I mean, now at this point, you're trying to change the way that, you're trying to shift the public sentiment and withhold law enforcement information so you can push a political narrative. Yeah, I'd say jail forever. For sure. 100%.
Constantly see those same mugshots, and the city finally gave out life sentences to repeat offenders.
Exactly.
But instead,
it's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you wouldn't keep seeing the same fucking usual suspects if you just keep the fuckers in jail. Keep them in jail, you're not going to have this problem. Oh, we just keep seeing these people over and over. Well, then fucking keep them there.
there's a concerning trend of booking non-white individuals as white people.
This is what I'm saying, right? Is that it's a default race category.
Completely ending the accuracy of crime statistics.
Yes.
And the worst part about this entire
And that's something that you should always keep in mind. Sometimes this is changed afterwards. So a lot of these are like the initial bookings because it just wasn't written down, right? But always keep this in mind whenever somebody's trying to show you crime statistics for racial stuff or anything like that. And this is, remember what I said before about how, like, why I don't trust statistics and why I don't trust data? Stuff like this is the reason why. And the problem is that a lot of people don't actually look beyond just like the base numbers and how the numbers were arrived at and the systems that generate those numbers. Because usually whenever you deconstruct the systems that generate those numbers, you will find that if you're a reasonable, intelligent person, which I think at least I'm reasonable, maybe not intelligent, but at least reasonable sometimes, you can generally kind of predict what studies are going to show because you've experienced the world and you're paying attention. So whenever a study shows something that's like completely opposite of what you were looking at and thinking about, the chances are that the study was manipulated. So what do you trust? Myself. I trust myself and my ability to discern information myself. And I will look at studies and the way information is gathered, and I will have like a sentiment on it, but I will not necessarily act on it. Like, I basically never let any study or any data overrule opinions that I have. I don't. And I've never been wrong, by the way. I've never been wrong about this. This has never taken me in the wrong direction. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to it at all, but whenever you hear something, and this is just really what it comes down to, right? Like, I'm not saying people should do this, but this is what you should do. Whenever you hear something that doesn't make any sense to you, you should assume that it's because it's wrong. And you should look into why that is. And if you look deep enough and you go into enough of the Russian nesting dolls of the lies, you will generally find some form of obfuscation or manipulation. Just like this. Just like this right here. That's my point.
Get that vehicle moving again!
Situation is these law enforcement agencies and news networks know most crime is intra-racial, meaning statistically criminals victimize people of their own ethnicity. So when we see atrocities like this story at a Stockton, where a kid's birthday party got shot up, it was suspected that this was gang violence involving the Asian Crips. As it appears, at least one of the men arrested was indeed Filipino. But you're never going to see anybody from the Asian community demand he be released or suppress his ethnicity, as statistically, when you lock up Asian criminals, you're protecting potential Asian victims. It all takes saving.
That's the thing that's very weird to me, is that I don't know why people want their own communities to be unsafe. Is it really whenever you have, and I think that here's the truth, is that some of the people that that want violent criminals released the most are the people that see and deal with violent criminals the least. So you have a bunch of upper middle class white women that are out there voting to release every violent criminal there is, and they're releasing these criminals into working class and Section 8 housing, and all of the people around there are being terrorized. Meanwhile, these women are living in gated communities, and they get to feel good about themselves that they did something that was nice. That's what happens.
Asian babies over violent Asian gang members every single time.
Of course.
Why does the media conveniently omit this perspective when reporting on these certain crimes? It's so the Democrats can turn this nonsense into reality.
There is absolutely no doubt that the data shows that the vast majority of incidents of domestic terror come from...
See? That's exactly what I'm saying. It's suicidal empathy? No, it's narcissistic empathy. Suicidal implies that you're going to be a victim of it. Narcissistic empathy means that somebody else is going to be a victim of it. AOC is never going to be a victim of it, right? Unless some tragedy happens, which I hope it doesn't, by the way. But I think she's a fucking retard. But either way, this is the reason why, is that they construct the data collection mechanisms, and then they report on the data inaccurately or in a intentionally incomplete way, and then they omit certain data points that are inconvenient, Like, for example, how many of the people that were burning things down at
You'll need a
BLM
top-notch team
or
to win this
the
one.
Tesla rioters were charged as domestic terrorism? As far as I know, basically zero. Maybe a few, but definitely not as many as there should have been. So whenever you look at this, like, and this is the problem, that this is like a Reddit problem, is that people will look at the baseline of something and never actually think beyond that.
You don't have to be a witch to find
White
the magic
nationalism.
in this world.
There are
But it does
problems
help.
in our communities, but usually it's some white supremacists on the other side.
We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
Because when the truth doesn't match their narrative, the left doesn't change their talking points. They just use the media.
Yep.
Crime reporting and sacrifice of all the
I cannot wait, bro. Like, whoever is going to run on a platform of deporting her back and sending all of these foreigners that have come into our country and want to bring their foreign bullshit into America, deporting every single one of them that is running an office or anything like that. And we have actual Americans, people that have American values, people that care about America, not making it and acting in the best interest of fucking Israel, Somalia, or wherever the fuck else they came from. I'm gonna vote for that guy. That's gonna be a guy I'm gonna vote for. I'm so fucking sick of this shit. It is so obnoxious. We are being occupied by people that hate us. It is a disgrace, and every day that we let it happen, it will continue to get worse.
victims they'll make to then pretend their narrative wasn't made up race-baiting nonsense, and for them to think we want to protect the identities of minority criminals and not disparage the law-abiding minorities, just switches on themselves on how they can't tell us apart.
Okay. I didn't think about that, but yeah, you're right.
Appreciate my insights. Light-hearted commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality. Subscribe to Decoy, as we somehow made the channel Decoy Voice even more concise.
It's a good video. It was. And this isn't even a melting pot of values. I mean, like, the thing is that I don't think that we have any obligation to bring in a bunch of fucking morons that don't even want to be in the country, don't even like the country, that want to push it for themselves and change it for themselves. And there, right there is the video. Make sure to give it a like. I totally fucking agree with what he's saying. I completely agree with all of this stuff. And I think, honestly, it should be more common. And yeah, that's it. Make public executions. I'm not executing it. Just send it back, right? And there's no reason to do that. And they want to be the country. Yeah, exactly. And anyway, I do feel like this is probably happening. Like, it's happening primarily because of the race of the individual being white. But why is it that white is the default? Why couldn't you just make the default unspecified? You see what I'm saying? And so, like, even in terms of the logic that I was given, that doesn't necessarily justify the behavior. Basically, they're like, it's kind of like, it's like a Blizzard solution, right? They're like, oh, well, we created this problem, and now we have a solution for the problem that we created. Well, wait a second, just get rid of the fucking problem. Like, what do you mean? Like, why do we need this extra system to solve this extra problem? Just get rid of the whole thing. And so, really, the issue here is that there is a default race, which is white, for a person. Like, that should absolutely not be the case. And I don't know why police departments haven't changed this. Actually, I do know why. It's because they don't want to, because they have people that are invested in the idea of continuing this misrepresentation. And that's fundamentally what it is that they want to lie to you. They want to lie to you and manipulate you and make you believe things that aren't true. And why would you want anybody that's going to do that to you? Like, that's it. I mean, it's just literally that simple. Like, they're literally just trying to lie to you. Imagine if like, think about it like this. It's a great point. Is that, think about it like this. If the default race was black, how fast would that change? How fast would all of them be crying and complaining and mauling and being pissed off about that? And how right would they be? They would be right. They would be right. It's bullshit. Total fucking bullshit to be able to do that. But for some reason, we accept it. I bet it's required, a literal non-nullable SQL database field. I know that, but you could just add in an extra feature and have it say unspecified as well. Like, there's no reason that you can't just make a fake race up inside of a database and then just say, okay, this is the placeholder one until somebody actually marks it the right way. Yeah, null. Like, unspecified, null, unknown. Like, there's 50 fucking words for it. So, yeah, just code it in. Like, you could literally fucking probably do this with AI. What do you mean default race? For what? Oh, for police bookings and for people that get arrested, right? A lot of cops are just lazy, so they don't fill out the information. You're missing my point. Whenever the information is not filled out, it should default to null or unspecified rather than white. And I think that solves all of the other problems. It removes the plausible deniability from the media, and it makes it a lot easier for people to see who the bad actors actually are. It's so obvious. So yeah, just a blank space. It's obviously intentional. Yes, it's obviously intentional. It is. So yeah, that's generally the way that I feel about it, and I think it's very obviously designed in a way to take advantage of people.
Constantine is able to expose exactly how the UK got to the point that they have. This is the CEO, the Center for Countering Digital Hate.
I tell you what, you are being disrespectful.
An astonishing amount of people are being arrested for posting things on Facebook and the like. Well, what is digital hate?
Most people know what hate speech is when they see it, and should be able to.
I don't know that I know what hate speech is when I see it.
And also, do you not feel as well?
It's a shame.
I don't know that Tottenham fan. Well, I don't know. So you could say also is Tottenham fan.
What you're doing is desperately trying to find the one or two examples of things in which there is a marginal case where the use of hate speech is just about justifiable.
One or two examples? There have been thousands. We just saw the comedian get arrested at the airport.
Comedy writer Graham Linehan was arrested by 5 officers at Heathrow Airport over posts on social media about trans people.
And those are absolutely fringe cases.
Yes, okay, you might be able to point to one or two, but usually it's very clear. We can see it. It's just clear cut. We know who to arrest.
But it's sad for me that you can't find...
No, sorry. Hold on a second. You're misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm not saying if someone comes up to a black person...
Again, rewind and just listen.
Good. I hope people do that because they'll see that you're misrepresenting what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I'm not saying if someone walks up to a black person in the street and calls them the N-word, that's not hate speech. I'm not going, oh my God, well, I don't know what that is. What I'm saying is the definition has to include everything that is hate speech and exclude everything that isn't. Well, that's what a definition is.
If we're going to enforce this through law, we need a clearly applicable definition. But watch how he dances around this.
The definition of hate speech, you can go to the absolute fringes of things which may or may not be, depending on the circumstances, or you can just say, for the main part, it's f***ing obvious.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, we're going to enforce this law, okay? How do we define when that law is committed? It's effing obvious.
So please don't make a game out of it.
To question that is to make a game out of it.
The McPherson definition of racism is whether or not the victim perceives it as being hateful and harmful towards them.
This is where he makes the mistake, because Constantine is able to take this logic and hit him in the head. That shouldn't be hate speech. We're talking about it as a metaphor.
So if you kept interrupting me during the course of this conversation, which you have, and I perceive that to be motivated by the fact that you're from a Muslim background and I'm from a Jewish background, would that make that hate speech?
No. You just said it comes down to whether the victim perceives it as hate speech.
But my self-perception is that.
No, it's just that you're really slow at talking and my brain's already finished your sentence.
But my perception isn't that. You walked out of the room, and when you walk out of here, I'm going to turn to these guys and say, oh, that was a lot of hate speech, wasn't it?
That's fine. You can say that that's hate speech.
And then you can be prosecuted.
It's absolutely fine for you to say that's hate speech if you want.
The point is your definition does not work when applied.
And then you can be prosecuted.
If me interrupting you is hate speech, and that's your definition of it, I tell you what, you are being disrespectful to the people who do receive hate speech.
But what is hate speech? What is the definition of hate speech? This doesn't mean hate doesn't exist. You're talking about something in the application of law.
The enormous number of people who receive hate speech, real, clear,
so do I.
Undeniable hate speech.
Okay, if it's real, and it's clear, and it's undeniable, You should be able to define it.
So do I.
And your sophistry right now is both transparent.
It's pure logic. And this is how people who cannot contend with the logic go about it. They claim it's sophistry.
And deeply disrespectful. And I warn you that most of your listeners will think to themselves, actually, Constantine's being a bit of a dickhead right now.
Okay. If you agree with what Miranda tells, I have a feeling that's not going to be the result.
That's interesting that you say that, because what I'm doing is I'm stress testing your argument, and the point I'm making to you is a person's self-perception can be manipulated. People can lie about how they perceive their the things that they experience, and sometimes people will use the law against other people when it's badly written. Don't you think that's true?
I do think
that's what I'm saying. So I'm not really being a dickhead, I'm stress testing your argument.
This is why we're seeing what's going on in the UK go so badly. Because if you're going to just make this the standard, well, it's up to the person's perception.
And calling me a dickhead might be considered hate speech.
No, it's not hate speech. It's just too bad.
Fine.
Wow, and that's exactly what the people that you're arresting would say in response to you. They're saying, I'm just simply making an observation. That fits into the sponsor of today's video, Ground News. Ground News is an app, a website that lets you compare perspectives on any topic with full transparency on the political bias, financial incentives, and credibility behind the headlines. Whatever the debate shaping our lives is, the narratives we hear can shape what we think before we've even had a chance to question. Critical thinking is all about thinking for oneself to navigate the stories and the patterns that make up the world. We see the differences in these stories through the lens of the media. Follow your favorite topics, or simply paste any article link in their search bar to find the full coverage on heated issues. Swipe between perspectives to form your own opinion based on all the facts. Ground News was designed to give you back control over your thoughts. That's why they created their blind spot feed, one of the most important things to check before trying to have constructive dialogue with people who think differently than you. Go to ground.news/Smith or scan the QR code on the screen. View it to the top tier Vantage plan for just $5 a month. So it's a handy tool. How best to navigate those stories, that's where Ground News comes in.
I have definitely noticed since Elon Musk took over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, that there's been more anti-Semitic content in my feed and in replies to me, etc., right?
Mm-hmm. Listen carefully to what Constantine says here, because this guy's going to try to play the exact same game of mischaracterizing what he said and then telling us to rewind the tape.
Generally speaking, I have to say I'm pretty comfortable with that, because what I've also noticed is that a lot of people who otherwise were not able to say things that they should have been able to say, in my opinion, were being censored, were being banned, etc. Those people are now back on the platform and able to say whatever it is. Men can't change sex.
That's the moment that really upsets this guy.
I think what we're talking about is how do you negotiate the conversation between that tension that's always existed in human communication between safety and freedom. You're grinning at me in a way that tells me you don't agree.
The way he characterizes this is shocking. Listen to how he does it.
With what I'm saying.
Oh, I just think it's remarkable that you're willing to tolerate the normalization of anti-Semitism to make a point about trans people.
Where did he talk about normal?
Things have gotten so much worse. Crucial, one of the leading brands in high performance and most importantly, affordable memory, just left the consumer market entirely to focus their efforts and their manufacturing on AI data centers. They just left. They're gone. One of the biggest memory brands on the planet is no longer supplying consumers at all. People thought prices were getting high already. Oh boy. Since the last time that we talked about AI, I have been spiraling. While I want to talk about the impacts to the gaming space, and we'll get to that, I think that it is incredibly important that people understand the gravity of the situation that we are headed into right now and just how much what's going on is going to change the world. I think a lot of people, for some odd reason, think that this is just limited to PC gaming. No, it's life, and also what I'm now starting to view as a class extinction event. Oh man, these guys are spending a lot of money on AI. No, we are all spending a lot of money on AI, and we're going to be spending a lot more. Inflation has been out of control essentially since COVID. This entire thing is just going to pour gasoline. It's going to pour jet fuel on that fire. And People are already struggling to be able to afford basic necessities, let alone luxury goods like video games. And now we have data center expansion that's layered on top of that is now estimated to double water and power consumption in the next 4 years. We're already paying for that, and it hasn't even started yet. All of these costs are going to just get passed down to the consumer. Hardware prices are going to rise, the price of everything is going to rise, and all the while, this technology is being aimed at reducing jobs and increasing productivity, not reducing prices. None of which matters if there's nobody left to be able to buy anything. So today, I'm crashing out. Today's video is sponsored by Starforge Systems, and this honestly feels like the right moment to talk about them. With hardware prices continuing to climb and individual parts getting harder to justify, buying piece by piece just doesn't make the same sense that it used to. Starforge builds are some of the highest quality PCs on the market. Whether you're looking for full tower powerhouses, a clean mid-range system, or a compact form factor build, they do it with a level of care that shows both in performance and finish. Their custom cases and collaborative designs are some of the slickest on the market, and everything is assembled by people who actually know PCs inside and out. If you've been thinking about upgrading while you still can, check out Starforge Systems using the link in the description. The AI industry is moving at such an absurd and reckless pace that I am almost convinced that the end goal here is not innovation, it is immortality for the people that are running it. The urgency, the scale, the money that's being burned, none of it makes sense unless these billionaires behind it believe that they can outlive the rest of us by using it. Maybe Walt Disney will finally get thawed out. Honestly, at least that means we'll probably get some better movies. In 2025 alone, the biggest tech companies on the planet, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, are throwing nearly $500 billion into AI data centers. $500 billion. That is an amount of money that is so absurd that you can barely even wrap your head around it. That's more money than the U.S. spends on their entire military in a year. It's more money than you would need to be able to buy a house for every family in the U.S. and still have some change left over. And all of it is going straight into these concrete boxes full of servers, sucking up hardware, land, electricity, and water at a scale that most people, regular people, will never benefit from, but will absolutely end up paying for. Actually, we're already paying for it. PC hardware prices have gone insane. RAM is already up 250%, now pushing 500% in some cases. Even pre-built companies like CyberPower PC are raising their prices before the year ends because they can't keep up with the cost of parts. And it's only getting worse because nobody is planning to relieve any of this pressure on consumers. Tom's Hardware reported that memory makers have no plans to increase RAM production despite crushing shortages, and Joey Morales spelled out exactly why, saying that the three biggest memory chip makers, Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung, are anticipated to spend $54 billion on capital expenditure, but this is focused on improving the performance of HBM modules for AI chips. So despite the 14% year-on-year growth in investments in the DRAM sector, they will not increase the available bit output of memory chips. Because of this, we can assume that the ongoing shortages will continue into next year and well into 2027. In fact, experts say that the massive appetite for AI chips driven by the infrastructure build-out will cause a pricing apocalypse that will last a decade. Yes, you heard them right. They said a decade. And if you guys think that prices are bad now, the industry is openly telling you that this is just the beginning. And this article was written before Micron left the consumer market entirely. On December 3rd, after nearly 30 years of serving consumers, Micron announced that Crucial, its entire consumer-facing brand, is shutting down February of 2026. And this isn't because they couldn't sell memory, it's because they're making far more from AI data centers. Their stock is up 300% this year, and I think that tells you exactly where the incentives are. Guys, this sucks so bad. Crucial is one of the top 5 memory brands with just under 10% market share next to giants like Corsair and Kingston. And most importantly, these guys were affordable. They were reliable. They were the no-nonsense option for regular people. I've used these guys in so many of my machines in the past, and now they're gone. A full manufacturer has just walked away from consumers entirely, shrinking competition, tightening supply even further, and taking one of the most budget-friendly choices off of the table. And of course, the strain doesn't stop there. Every major hardware company is doing the exact same thing, and they're all shifting their production to be able to support AI data centers. NVIDIA, the leader of this entire AI boom, openly reminded everybody this year that they are not a gaming company, and now it's reported they won't be supplying VRAM to their board partners. Normally, NVIDIA sources their memory directly through Samsung, Micron, or SK Hynix, but now they're pushing that responsibility onto GPU makers, forcing them to buy from the same memory suppliers who are already redirecting their production to AI, which means that RAM prices go up, GPU prices go up, and there is no relief coming. And of course, it doesn't stop there, because you have chip makers now that want to take advantage of the moment. AMD is reportedly raising the prices of their CPU as shortages grow, and there are early signs that this is going to spill over to their GPU pricing as well. AI is not just inflating one quarter of the market, it's pulling the entire hardware ecosystem up with it. I think a lot of people still believe that this is somehow limited to just PC gaming and PC hardware enthusiasts. Like, the fallout of this is just a tech hobby problem. No, it's not. I mean, I've even seen console players believing that they are somehow safe from all of this. What's happening right now is going to accelerate inflation and widen class divides at a speed that I didn't even think was possible. The price spikes that we're seeing right now are not isolated. This is going to bleed into everything that uses memory, chips, and GPUs, which is basically every sector of modern life right now. The same suppliers that build RAM and VRAM for PCs are also the ones that are supplying chips for your phone, your car, your TV, the card reader at the grocery store. If their costs explode, the cost to run every business increases too, and those businesses are just going to pass that burden directly down to consumers. And we haven't even touched the impact of the data centers themselves. I mean, the data center expansion hasn't even started yet. What we're seeing right now is just a warm-up, expansions into existing facilities and a handful of early builds, not the thousands that have already been approved, planned, or proposed across the country, let alone the world. Hyperscalers like Google are building massive sites in Texas, Arkansas, and Virginia. Microsoft is building everywhere, and Meta is dropping a new data center in Louisiana that's the size of apparently the bottom half of Manhattan. Some of these projects span over 1,000 acres, replacing farmland, consuming entire water tables, and pulling more electricity than small cities. And that's not speculation. CNET reported that an OpenAI-backed site in Texas is projected to consume 1.2 gigawatts of electricity. That is the same amount it takes to power 750,000 homes. The scale of this is unprecedented and completely unsustainable. IBM CEO openly warned that the ongoing build-out is not viable long-term, simply because the infrastructure required to power and cool these AI facilities would collapse the grid and their return on investment. The Department of Energy is saying that AI data centers are now a key driver for electricity demand growth, with national electricity expected to double by 2035, largely because of AI. Worse over, CNET found a Google facility in Iowa that's consuming 1.4 billion gallons of water in a single year. The communities around these things are already feeling it. Residents in Georgia said that their wells are drying up because Meta broke ground on a new complex. Some towns near data centers are seeing their power bills spike over 200% in just the past 5 years, and those power bills don't just hit households, they're hitting every single business in the area, raising prices of everything downstream. But wait, LD, there's gotta be some payoff, right? Something for the average person? Well, sort of. I mean, Meta has been boasting about these facilities and how they're there to be able to help the community thrive while actually driving down local home values, polluting the water supplies, and increasing vehicle accidents by nearly 600% during peak construction hours. And oh, that giant Louisiana facility, that one that's going to take up 2,250 acres, well, it's expected to create around 500 permanent jobs in exchange for wiping out a chunk of land the size of a small city. So yeah, this has me crashing out. Like I've said before, I don't have a problem with AI as a technology. What I do take issue with is the speed and scale of this expansion. These guys are treating it like it's a Cold War. Maybe it is a Cold War, but right now it looks more like class warfare than anything else. A consolidation of wealth, land, and resources, stripping jobs from the economy and funneling all of these benefits upward. When the cost of living explodes, when resources get drained, when industries turn their back on consumers, when corporations start buying up land like they're building their own country, when entire markets get reshaped overnight, that is not progress, and it is all being aimed at the same people every single time. So now we're talking about higher energy costs, higher water rates, less water, higher consumer pricing for pretty much every single category, higher operating costs for every industry that relies on digital infrastructure, power, and water. So basically everything, and barely any jobs to offset those impacts. Oh, and this technology is mostly being aimed at reducing jobs on a global scale. And all of this is happening before any of these planned data centers have even broken ground. I hate sounding like a conspiracy theorist here because I don't think that there's some secret room with a dozen CEOs that are chanting over a cauldron, but well, at least I hope not. But I do think that we're watching something that's been building for years. Constant social division, culture war after culture war, race, gender, and ideology, all of it being amplified by platforms that are owned by the self-same companies that are driving this AI expansion, and it has all felt weirdly convenient, like a distraction, because while everybody's been fighting over the latest outrage cycle, the real material shift has been happening quietly in the background. The middle and lower classes are being squeezed out of stability, out of savings, out of ownership, out of mobility, out of jobs, out of their homes. And if hardware becomes unsustainable, if utilities skyrocket, if jobs get automated faster than new ones appear, then this is just a restructuring of society in real time. And I'm not saying that it's coordinated, I'm just saying that it's happening. And I'm saying that it's impossible to see who's benefiting and who's paying. 500 jobs is a total lie, by the way. I hope you guys understand that. I worked a construction job at the Google Iowa facility out in Council Bluffs, and you'd be lucky to see 20 people that were working there at one single time. These places decimate local jobs. They don't give them anything. We're talking about data centers that are plopped into the middle of BFE. How many people do you think out there are actually qualified to be able to work at a data center to begin with? At most, all they're going to be able to take on is a couple of maintenance guys, some janitors, some heating and air people, but nothing that's actually going to be able to offset the cost to the community itself. And all of the cascading effects for the energy costs, as well as just general inflation for the area. Right now, AI has no tangible benefits for the average person. That's what the problem is. And all of it is being aimed at reducing jobs on a global scale. Just Cyberpunk 2077 without any of the cool stuff. The only people that are benefiting from any of this right now are CEOs, billionaires, mutual funds, local and national politicians. Every single time I have turned on any coverage in a local area, not necessarily national news, I like no local news more than anything, but there's always some cheesing politician that's sitting there talking about how great it is for the community, how they're bringing jobs and injecting money into the local economy as you're watching them plop a data center into the middle of some middle-class neighborhood, driving down their property values, likely on purpose to be able to push them off their land and buy their land right up from underneath them. The costs are going to explode. Job markets are going to vanish overnight, and I think a lot of this is going to happen faster than most people are prepared for. And I think that the industry that we're going to see this affected by the most at first is actually going to be the video game industry. While a lot of people believe that it might be somewhat isolated, it's not. It's directly downstream from all of this. They live and die by the exact same hardware supply lines, the same hardware, the same chips, the same data centers, all of this stuff, which means that we're not going to be talking about some type of slow movement into this, some slow adjustment. No, it's going to be a rapid shift in who gets to make games, how games are made, how much they cost, who even gets to buy them, how these games are delivered. And I think it's going to happen faster than publishers and players are even prepared for. I want to set expectations real quick. I'm not pretending to be some academic or industry insider. I'm just somebody who pays attention. I follow business, I follow economics, I watch how technology and culture collide with one another, and I keep coming back to games because this industry reflects all of that better than almost anything else. Gaming doesn't just reflect culture, it's stress tested. Same with technology. GPUs, real-time rendering, online systems, most of the stuff that is powering modern tech today got its first real workout here. That's why this industry grew so quickly, and it's also why this industry is so fragile. Every pressure point is exposed. Hardware, energy, labor, money, culture. When something shifts in the wider world, gaming feels it almost immediately. Okay, so we already know that the custom PC market is feeling this first. That part isn't new, but what got overlooked almost immediately, though, is what Micron's pivot actually means for the rest of gaming hardware. Micron is not some niche supplier. They are a major producer of memory that's used in NVIDIA graphics cards alongside DRAM and NAND flash that ends up in gaming consoles. The exact mix is going to vary by model and manufacturer. Sometimes it's Samsung that's filling that role or SK Hynix, but that detail almost doesn't even matter anymore because the reality is all these companies are making the exact same decisions at the exact same time, shifting all their production towards AI-focused memory and away from consumer hardware. That is going to create scarcity everywhere. GPUs, consoles, storage, everything downstream from memory production is just going to get tightened up all at once, and that's going to leave console makers with two very bad options. either the next generation is going to launch at prices that would have sounded insane just a few years ago, well north of $1,000 per system, or those consoles are going to get delayed because these companies realize that there is no realistic way to sell what now looks like a premium PC price. Consoles have always survived on being affordable, the accessible entry point into gaming. If they lose that role, they don't just become more expensive, they become way harder to justify it all. Now for players, the outcome is going to be pretty simple and also pretty bleak. Wherever you guys are right now, that's probably exactly where you're going to be staying for quite a long time. Either you're going to get priced out of upgrading entirely, or upgrades are just not going to exist in a meaningful way. And this isn't just about new hardware. Even existing components are going to get more expensive to make as memory production gets redirected towards AI, and also as energy costs climb alongside all these new data centers being expanded upon. This is just pressure building, scarcity feeding inflation, inflation feeding higher production costs, and higher costs locking people out of climbing that hardware ladder altogether. Gaming isn't just going to slow down under these conditions, it's going to get frozen in place. Now, if we zoom out just a bit, this also means that the cost to operate a game studio is about to skyrocket, especially for these studios who have been chasing multiplayer and live service games. This is what I mean when I say that these effects do not stay contained. Even if existing live service games don't technically need any of this cutting-edge AI hardware to be able to function, these companies are still running and integrating a lot of this AI everywhere else. All their back-end systems, the analytics, the moderation, content generation, customer support, Epic, EA, Ubisoft, all these guys have been getting into this stuff. They're all doing it right now. And those costs are not going to live in a vacuum. They are going to roll straight into the operating budgets, into the server costs, and also into their long-term stability. On top of that, hardware scarcity and rising energy prices are going to make it harder and more expensive to be able to keep servers online at scale. Live service games don't need to just exist. They got to stay alive. And as these server costs continue to climb and expansion becomes more expensive, a lot of these publishers are going to hit a wall maintaining what they already have, let alone launching the next wave of always online games that they built their entire strategy around. And this doesn't stop with AAA, which sucks in this case. The second order effects are going to hit indie developers and smaller studios too. Even if you're targeting low-end hardware and making smaller, less demanding games, you still have to clear the basic entry point just to be able to exist in this space. You need development hardware, you need build machines, and if your game has any online component at all, you need servers. And as these costs rise, a lot of the would-be developers that are out there are simply just going to be priced out before they can even ship a game. Not because they lack the talent, but just because they can't afford the door fee anymore. What this ultimately means is that the price floor for games is going to rise across the board for publishers, for developers, and for players. Big publishers, these guys could totally absorb the cost if they wanted to. They already make an obscene amount of money from their services, microtransactions, and reoccurring revenue, but they won't. They never have. Historically, every single bad bet, every overinvestment just gets passed down to the customer at the end of the day. But these indie guys, they're not going to have a choice. That really sucks for them. As development costs climb, many of these guys are going to have no other option but to charge more just to be able to survive. Even if their games don't feel more expensive to players, that's going to put them in an impossible position. Higher prices, a more price-sensitive audience, and less tolerance for risk. The end result isn't just going to be higher-priced games. It's going to be more failures, more studios that collapse, more creative voices that disappear just because the economics behind all of this stop making sense. And there's another part of this that makes the situation spiral even faster, and it's a part that I think a lot of people want to separate just for comfort reasons, but the cost of the hobby is now rising at the exact same time as cost of living is exploding. That is a lethal combination, my friends. Games do not exist in a vacuum. When rent is higher, groceries are higher, utilities are higher, suddenly a console, a game, or a stupid cosmetic feel like a luxury that you just cannot justify. Not because people don't love games, but because they're being forced to triage their own spending. And what sucks about a lot of this is that we're kind of screwed no matter what way this AI gamble plays out. Even if AI works the way that these billionaires hope it does, well, then living gets more expensive and jobs become harder to come by at the exact same time. If it doesn't work and it all turns out to be another overhyped arms race that just collapses under its own weight, well, the financial fallout still lands on regular people. The recession, the layoffs, the belt tightening, either way, the risk is being socialized downwards. From the perspective of the games industry and honestly just everyday people, I only see this heading in one direction in the short term. Server pullbacks, fewer always online games, which honestly is a good thing, more aggressive shutdowns, and inevitably a sharper rise in piracy. Not out of malice, but just out of necessity. When access gets priced out and ownership keeps slipping away, people are going to find workarounds. They always do. Now, while I think it's going to be tough, I will say that I don't think that indie or AA developers are going to disappear. If anything, they're going to be the first ones to adapt. They're forced to. They're going to use older tools, older engines, lower their hardware targets, squeeze out as much as they can from this space as possible. We're already kind of seeing that right now with the flood of pixel art, low-res, and retro-inspired games, not just as an aesthetic choice, but now as a survival strategy. It's going to let these developers reach the widest audience possible without demanding expensive hardware, and that's going to let players keep engaging without upgrading. AAA, though, I just don't see how it stays sustainable, at least not in its current form. Not with all these different hardware demands from a lot of these different companies, not with the level of inefficiency of these companies, especially when a lot of that inefficiency is intentional. I recently had read an interview from a former Sony game director who said, from a game developer's perspective, the higher performance of a game console, the better. This also applies to games whose graphics don't seem to fully utilize the performance. The reason is that it reduces the cost of resources for optimization during development and shortens the development process. Basically, it means that you can create something fairly rough and it still works well. That mindset explains everything. It's not about better games, it's about avoiding restraint, about avoiding optimization, avoiding discipline more than anything else. Just throw hardware at the problem and ship something broken because the machine will be able to brute force it. That approach only works when hardware is cheap and plentiful, and that era is ending fast. This AI expansion is just going to make AAA games entirely unsustainable. The cost to be able to operate their businesses is going to go straight through the roof. The cost to be able to operate their servers, players being able to afford their games, let alone even be able to run them. And all these guys are all chasing the tail of AI, thinking that's going to be able to solve these issues for them. I don't think that it's going to. And I've said this for a while now. These games, they need to be made more sustainable. They need to stop thinking about trying to make the most high-fidelity game possible and instead try to focus on expression, on artistry, something that it's where this industry came from. And without it, you know, where are you going to be able to go? Most of these guys have already ripped that out of their companies to begin with, which doesn't really leave them with a lot of options or a path forward. Indie is the one that I'm the most worried about right now, and us as well, because, you know, a lot of the coverage that I've seen talking about a lot of these issues is entirely limited to just like the immediate future. What's going to happen next year? What's going to happen the year after that? But these companies and these governments and these people, these billionaires, there's trillions of dollars in this. This is going to cascade on and on. The costs of this are going to cascade on and on for a decade or even longer than that. And that's going to make it almost impossible for people to even get in the door when it comes to this hobby. That's taking opportunities away from these developers, and it's also just taking an escape away from the rest of us. This has been a moment of self-discovery for me. I am an incredibly pragmatic person. I fully understand the cost of progress, the inevitability of progress, and not wanting to stand in front of it. That's not really what I'm trying to do or talk about in this case. But I just don't really see the benefits for society, at least not immediately. And that's kind of bothersome right now because AI is such an unknown quantity. We don't know if it's going to turn the world into science fiction or if it's just going to be nothing at all. And the people that have all that potential, the ones that are wielding that potential right now, are only using it to benefit themselves, to make them richer, to enrich themselves at the cost of everybody else. All I know is that in the immediate future, we're all going to get a lot of mileage off of our backlogs, that's for sure. And we're going to see piracy rise to just unprecedented levels. Which, I mean, to be fair with a lot of the quality of the games that we've seen and also the prices of some of the games we've seen that's already been happening in the background, but this is just going to exacerbate that issue insanely. And I did a little hardware survey at the end of one of my last videos where we were kind of talking about some of these issues. Most of you guys are on mid-range hardware. So if these guys start trying to make anything bigger than that, they're cooked. In a lot of cases, they already are. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends. Sharing is very important. Sharing is caring, okay? It also really helps my videos with their reach. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Kick. Catch me in the next one. I got a couple more coming for you this week. I'll catch you guys then. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Peace.
Ooh, wait, that hit the spot.
There are two things that happen, and I think that they are all too similar. We have Tim Sweeney of Epic Games that stepped forth and he's criticizing Steam for their use of ID tags, saying that it doesn't make sense for a game store to label games that are using generative AI. It doesn't make sense for customers to have full context of their purchases before they actually make a purchase. I can't imagine why you guys are having so many troubles beating Steam. Maybe you should probably just get a couple more journalists to try to write an article about how it's a monopoly. Then we have Ubisoft. We haven't heard from these guys in a long time, so you know it's going to be pretty good. They're going to their local government with a long list of excuses, likely trying to prepare themselves for massive layoffs that'll be coming very soon, I'm sure. Talking about their poor performance and saying that well, it's not our fault. It's not our games. No, it's just that players just aren't buying new games anymore. It's market conditions that are the problem. Even though we've seen multiple breakout successes this entire year, many of those successes actually coming from their former employees, new studios, and studios without any marketing. But sure, yeah, it's just new games we don't like. Definitely not just yours. You would think that making games is the best job in the world, with one of the easiest customer bases to serve. I realize a lot of people meme on that because they go, oh, you just can't please the gamers. You absolutely can. They're a lot easier than you think we are. And I don't think that there is an audience that's as vocal as the gaming audience is. We have no problem telling you what our opinion is. We have absolutely no issue celebrating the games we love and hating on the games we do not. And there's so much information that we throw out there, so much valuable feedback, but that feedback doesn't mean anything if they aren't willing to listen. And it's like we don't exist. Either it's their ego or they just genuinely think that they know better than us. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about an industry that just refuses to listen, one that blames its players for not buying their games, one that thinks that we don't deserve to know how these games are being made, and one that is going to continue to ignore us until they can't. I genuinely believe that in the age of the internet where social media is everywhere and commentary is essentially unavoidable at this point, it has never been easier to figure out what players want, what they don't want, and what they absolutely cannot stand. We are a passionate bunch. We love talking about games, and we love making sure that everybody else knows exactly how we feel about them. You do not have to look far to find a 1,000-word Steam review with a mountain of engagement or tens of thousands of hours of YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok videos that are breaking down every single design choice from every single angle that's possible. This is feedback that none of these companies have to pay for. They don't need focus groups. They don't need surveys. They don't need to do anything. They just got to open up their eyes, open their ears, and engage with the overwhelming amount of information that players are handing them for free. And I'm telling you guys this right now because I need you to understand why I am so frustrated with this industry. I know it's uncomfortable for them to have to sift through a lot of this feedback to separate the useful from the useless, to read things that might actually end up hurting their feelings, but these companies have everything they need to succeed. Everything! And it just drives me up the wall when I watch them say and do things that offer players nothing, ignore the clearest feedback imaginable, and then somehow act surprised when their games and their platforms underperform. And I think that you can see this pattern everywhere, especially with companies that are trying to compete with Steam right now. Everybody wants a piece of Steam's success. Of course they would. Steam makes a lot of money, but nobody wants to actually listen to the players or build what the players are asking for. They all show up with these half measures and shortcuts and some inflated belief that players are just going to magically abandon a platform they trust. And that trust part is something that these companies do not take seriously. They ignore it entirely. And I think that nowhere is that delusion clearer than Epic Games. I think that these guys are embarrassing. I realize that some people like them. I like what they've done with Fortnite, but outside of that, I just think that these guys are ridiculous. They have industry experience. They have one of the most played games on the planet. They own and develop the most widely used engine in the entire medium. And with all of that knowledge, that influence, and that money, they still haven't managed to turn their store into anything other than a launcher for Fortnite and a place to grab a free game every couple of weeks. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. None of this makes sense to me. These guys have poured hundreds of millions of dollars into this store, and after 7 years, they don't even come close to touching Steam. They haven't even gotten to the point where they could sniff Steam's boot. But after Tim Sweeney's recent comments, everything started making sense. A Twitter user had posted, Steam and all digital marketplaces need to drop the Made with AI label. It doesn't matter anymore. This post blew up, over 1 million impressions, barely any likes, a massive pile of comments, most people not having anything very nice to say, but the comment that caught everybody's eye and got the most coverage was Tim Sweeney himself saying that, agreed, the AI tag is relevant to art exhibits for authorship disclosure and digital content licensing marketplaces where buyers need to understand the rights situation. It makes no sense for game stores, where AI will be involved in nearly all future production. Sweeney would then double down on this in response to another user who had said, this heavily implies that Epic are now using AI coding tools in the latest updates of the Unreal Engine. Therefore, according to Steam's guidelines, any game built with Unreal Engine must declare the use of Gen AI. Sweeney responded with, and this is absolute gold, not true. I just hate to see Valve confiscate ever more opportunity from small developers by facilitating new categories, cancel campaigns, and review bombings. Steam used to just facilitate downloads, then they foreclosed on payments, then price competition, then crypto, now AI. You're not pulling one over on me, brother. Sweeney's out here throwing around this pity party framing like he's some champion of the poor little indie devs, as if Valve's out here crushing their hopes and dreams, and he's the last hero to stand between these small studios, crypto, AI, and annihilation. Actually, we should probably let some of that stuff come through, but it's manipulative, it's self-serving, and frankly, it's embarrassing. So we're going to go point by point, because every single thing that he brings up and complains about exposes exactly why Epic has never gotten anywhere near Steam. The first thing that he brought up is how Steam foreclosed on payments. He's talking about the Steam wallet and how Valve has their own approved payment processors. Yes, this has caused some censorship issues. We've talked about that on this channel, but it also means that players get one secure wallet. We don't have to re-input our payment information. We get consistent fraud protection, easy refunds, and no sketchy third-party sites. It's a hell of a lot more secure and convenient for the customer, but it comes at the expense of the publisher and the developer. You're going to start to see this trend with Sweeney. He then cries about their price rules. Valve prevents publishers from jacking up their prices on Steam while undercutting them everywhere else. Sweeney hates this because, well, it stops Epic from doing the one strategy that they had, undercut the competition and Prey, but for the players, it means that your library doesn't have to be scattered across 5 launchers just to be able to avoid getting ripped off. Epic calls it anti-consumer. Everybody else is going to call it consumer protection. Next, he whines about Steam banning crypto, blockchain, and NFT games. That complaint honestly will tell you just about everything that you need to know. These games almost always are scams, pump and dump schemes, and projects that are missing half the skeleton of actual gameplay. Valve just said, no thanks, we don't want to have anything to do with that. Epic said, come on in, baby. And when one platform shields their players from dumpster fires and the other one rolls out the red carpet for them, I don't really think I have to tell you which one actually gives a damn about its customers. And then we have his masterpiece, the reason for this video, the AI disclosure tag. And honestly, man, Steam just wants clarity. They just want their customers to know what they're buying. And they also want to protect themselves legally. Sweeney is framing this like it's some oppressive overreach, like Valve is leading a witch hunt. No, dude, it's transparency. It's just basic labeling. And the fact that you are willing to die on this hill makes it painfully obvious how disconnected you are from what players actually want, because customers do seem to want these tags. Every point that he raises, every issue he fabricates, every accusation he's throwing at Steam, all of it just reinforces the exact same truth, that these guys are out here for themselves, not for their players, not for the customers, and that's somebody that we can't trust. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like to buy stuff from people that I don't trust. Now, I replied to Sweeney and I had said, Tim, this right here is why you will never beat Steam. It makes no sense for game stores, but it does make sense for customers. We don't need a cash register. We need transparency and a voice. And that's exactly where I stand. I do not care if a game uses AI. They've used different AI tools for years. What I do care about is players having all of the information that they need before spending money. That's it. Being an informed customer should not be a controversial issue, but apparently it scares the hell out of some of these companies, which, honestly, guys, that tells you a lot about what's going on right now. They would rather you not know anything at all about any of these purchases, be blind to their practices, blind to their processes, and happy to just swallow down whatever they serve you. And I am not going to pretend like that is acceptable. I also saw some people that were rallying around Sweeney. Mark Kern, formerly of Blizzard, had jumped into the conversation saying that Sweeney is stating the obvious. I responded, that doesn't change the purpose of the disclosure. Only the customer gets to decide what is and isn't useful before making a purchase. This isn't about AI, it's about choice. I am all for destigmatizing AI, but people still deserve the option. He then doubled down saying that the tag is uninformative and that these tools are everywhere and every game is going to be labeled as AI soon. So I clarified one last time saying, you're missing my point. While there should be better distinctions given how quickly things have evolved, some people want nothing to do with it regardless. I don't agree with those people. I only care about how it's implemented, like Arc Raiders versus Call of Duty. I view this as no different as people wanting to know if a game has consultants involved with its development. Many people would say that's useless, unhelpful information, no need for a distinction. I am for people knowing everything that they want to know before making a purchase, whether I share their values or not. Maybe I'm just too radically pro-consumer. Maybe that's what the problem is. I just can't see clearly. But the one thing that I do think that I can see clearly is that these CEOs, especially guys like Tim Sweeney, they do not understand the perspective of the customer whatsoever. They're looking at this situation and they're like, well, why would the customer need to know what kind of tools we're using? Why would they need to know that we were using Gen AI? And furthermore, why do they hate it so much? They just don't get it. And the reason why, and it's pretty simple, the customer just does not see a benefit in it for themselves. People are going to say, oh, it's slop, oh, it's the human cost. No, it's not. It's just that they don't see a benefit in it for themselves. Simple as that. Why are people supposed to get excited about these video game companies? They're going to come out with the exact same games. They're going to charge the same fucking price and make even more money than they ever have before. How does that sound like it benefits? It doesn't. And I can totally understand where people are coming from. Now, personally, I don't really care if these companies use Gen AI. And I fully know that in the future, this technology is going to be used to make some incredible games. It's being used right now in some cases. I mean, Expedition 33, they used it in their prototyping or in their concept phases, and look how that game turned out. There's been other examples of it as well. Arc Raiders is another one. But regardless of how good some of these games are or how common this all becomes, from my perspective, nobody gets to tell the customer what is and isn't useful information to them before making a purchase. They have a right to know. You don't get to say otherwise. And Timmy boy, this idea that for whatever reason that people know if AI is used, that is somehow going to stop that game from selling, that Steam is confiscating success from indie studios. That is the most performative take on Gen AI I've ever heard. Honestly, you deserve an award. The idea that people wouldn't buy. I mean, most people know that cell phones are made sourced with parts through child labor, and they still go and buy those phones. It's the same thing with AI. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. If the product is worth it, if it's a product they need, the people are going to get it. It's just as simple as that. But even still, I'm sticking to the point. If the people want to know if it's used, they deserve to know if it's used. Simple as that. And this is the exact same reason why I'm not tossing aside people's concerns over hiring practices at some of these companies, over the use of consultancy agencies or agendas that people feel that are in some of these games or whatever it might be. Well, in a lot of cases, in most cases, this entire industry has told people, those people, that it doesn't matter. Now it's happening again, but it's kind of flipped on a different side. No, that's not how this works. Whether I have the same values of you or not, it doesn't really matter to me, man. Like, everybody deserves to know whatever they want to know about a product that they are purchasing. That's what my perspective on this is. And it's important that these companies come to terms with the idea that customers are emotional people. We do not make rational decisions when we purchase products. We sometimes make emotional purchases. And you need to get behind that. Hiding from it, that's not going to do anything from you. And believing that your opinion or your values are more important, well, that's the fastest way to be able to find failure. I'll tell you that right now. And there's one company that knows that better than anybody else. That's Ubisoft. Those guys have been struggling for a long time. They've been ignoring the values of their players, ignoring the values of just all of their audiences in general, and they have failed to listen to their audiences the same way that these guys are failing to listen to audiences the same. They've spent the last few months now crying to their local government, telling them this long list of excuses, and they're lying to themselves. If you sat down and pretty much asked anybody, even people who don't even follow the industry, why Ubisoft is struggling, why their stock price has cratered 92% in the past 5 years and is inching towards delisting, you'd get the exact same answer every single time. Their games aren't good, and they haven't made anything worth caring about. That is the universal take. You can't really put it much simpler than that, but instead of acknowledging that players are just not connecting with their games, instead of recognizing the obvious sentiment around their quality, Ubisoft's recent filings with Company House, Ubisoft UK, insist that the problem isn't them at all. No, instead, it's actually that players just don't buy as many games anymore. In an article from Insider Gaming titled, Ubisoft says people are playing fewer games, which makes more newer games struggle to stand out. Grant Taylor Hill writes, in a recent filing with Companies House, Ubisoft's United Kingdom-based arm wrote a lengthy breakdown about the future developments of the firm. This somewhat morbid telling of a tale of gaming suggested that a paradigm shift is occurring, one that is skewing the future of new single games in the wake of subscriptions and live service titles. Wasting no time, Ubisoft's representatives directly said that consumers are playing fewer games, and the ones that they do play, they're playing for longer, which means that the new single releases are struggling to compete and achieve with the sales that they once had. The traditional full game model of selling a €50 or €60 game to a consumer as a one-time purchase continues to become less ubiquitous, with multiplayer subscription services, long-running games as a service titles, free-to-play games, and cloud streaming offerings, all providing new and attractive ways for consumers to access gaming content. Consumers are playing fewer games, playing them for longer, and as a result, outside of a few notable exceptions, newer games are struggling to stand out and achieve the sales that they may have once had, while the market is more volatile and the potential for any specific title is less predictable as a result. All that was followed by a note that Ubisoft Limited would see falling revenue in the coming months. Man, these guys kill me. I actually love Ubisoft. I hope that these guys never go out of business, mostly just because they become some of the best punching bags in the entire industry. But, like, what are you guys talking about? At one point, they bring up how physical sales are slumping and it's somehow hurting their bottom line. Buddy, I'm sure it's not just your physical sales. And then they go on to talk about how people are buying fewer games, so newer releases just can't stand out. I mean, you got half of that right. People are buying fewer games, but that just means that the games that are releasing are just releasing under higher scrutiny. They are getting the attention. I mean, you had no problem standing out, just not for the right reasons. Go watch one of your trailers from a decade ago. The emotion, the character, the artistry, some of the best world and character design in the entire industry. And then fast forward to today, where you guys are turning 2B into 2Brad, and you got Assassin's Creed, a franchise that used to mean something, that once used to stand as a pillar of AAA design, that is now grinded down to a pseudo live service zombie with some of the laziest art direction, animation, and storytelling that you guys have ever shipped. A game that can't even respect the crossovers that it's pandering to. Struggling to stand out, everybody saw Assassin's Creed Shadows, everybody saw Star Wars Outlaws, everybody knew of Skull and Bones. The problem wasn't visibility, the problem was nobody wanted to buy it. It's not that you failed to stand out, you just stood out for the worst reasons possible. And then you pivot to, well, live service is the only thing that's finding success. Dude, what world are you living in? The last 2 years have been nothing but a massacre for live service. The only real successes we have seen have been Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, Battlefield 6, Where Winds Meet, and Ark Raiders, and 3 of those games just came out recently. And even those games have been struggling to be able to hold on to their players for an entire year. Meanwhile, we've already seen a graveyard of live service games that just died on arrival. I mean, nearly all of the most successful and celebrated games right now are new, non-live service games. This year alone, we got Megabong, Schedule 1, Monster Hunter Wild, Split Fiction, Hades 2, Expedition 33, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Elden Ring, Night Rain, Silksong, KCD 2, Silent Hill F, Digimon Time Strangers, Dispatch, Dying Light. Guys, I could just keep going, but I'm not going to because it's a really long list. There's a lot more that I could name. There is no shortage of good games to buy, and people have been buying those games. People have been buying plenty of these games right now. Good games.
We've seen some pretty fantastic games come out this year. Expedition 33, Hollow Knight, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Elden Ring Night Rain. I mean, the Game Awards lineup for 2025 is looking pretty solid. But there is one title that has genuinely surprised me, and that's Where Winds Meet. Now, this is a free-to-play open-world RPG. Hold on, let me cook. You can use Tai Chi to throw bears in this game. All right, let me cook for a moment. But why am I talking about this game? randomly, out of the blue. Well, you might not know this about me, but I actually have a black belt in Taekwondo. I've also learned that Bruce Lee is a liar.
Oh, don't hit back.
They sure do, Bruce. My arm still hurts. But martial arts and video games are two very big parts of my life, yet they rarely intersect. So when I was offered a sponsorship to play this martial arts RPG set in 10th century China, it kind of felt like the stars aligned. This sponsorship just fell into my lap. So I agreed to play the game and make a video about it on the one condition that I would have total creative freedom, and I can say whatever I want about it. They generously agreed, and we will make them regret that decision.
Okay, they got a lot of cosmetics and stuff. Oh, look at all these fish. Wow, okay. Oh, no, put some shoes on. No. Yep, shoes. Okay, no gooning allowed. They're cracking down on gooning these days, guys.
Spoilers, the biggest criticism I have is that the game sometimes feels like a menu simulator. I just want to stab people with my spear and pull up these insane combos. Where Winds Meet is this bizarre concoction of ingredients that miraculously work together quite well. It's almost as if it's trying to be every kind of open world game. And while it may not be the best in any one category, it does a really good job combining all of these familiar mechanics. It has the design of an MMO without other players stealing your mobs, but it's co-op. So if you want people running around your world, you can. You play the whole game with a buddy. It has a Dark Souls type messaging system with very few restrictions on what you can say.
What the fuck, these comments? I gooned here.
And just look at the cutscenes for a moment. Would you believe that this is free to play? It has all of the polished flair and graphical fidelity, breadth of content as a full AAA priced $70 game. So if this looks cool, if it looks fun, you could try it without any hassle. Heck man, this sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? Well, if you're wondering, the game is not pay to win. You can play and beat the entire game without spending a dime. You can purchase cosmetics, and there are gacha mechanics, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. To put it simply, Where Winds Meet is unlike anything I've ever played, and the things I don't particularly enjoy about it are more to do with my own personal taste, rather than some critical design flaw or oversight. So when playing this game, I'm looking at it from a martial artist perspective. I trained with some of these weapons, so I want to see how they were handled. For better and sometimes worse, Where Winds Meet is loaded with combat mechanics. You can block, parry, dodge, or jump. They went a little crazy here. You have a triple jump. At your disposal are aerial attacks, a ground pound, there's wall running, which is kind of janky, and that's when you remember, oh, this is free to play. But there is a lot of crazy movement. You can fly in this game, or get different mounts like this Army of Geese. I love the goose mount. I love it. Some abilities let you freeze enemies in place temporarily. You got quick attack, charging heavies, stylish execution moves that play a little jingle. There's like 12 different weapon types, each with their own move sets and a variety of special abilities that you can swap out. Not to mention a handful of martial arts skills, some useful in combat like the aforementioned bear throw technique, and others are used for puzzle solving. I mean, there's a lot going on here. And the combat for me is the big highlight. It's surprising then that this game recently came to PC, but they also have an Android and iOS port coming in December. And I'll be honest, I don't know how you're going to get this like 99 gigabyte game working on a phone. This is a very ambitious title, and I can't help but wonder if it's making some sacrifices in order to be a mobile game. Mostly in terms of like how the menus and the reward structures work. It is very mobile centric in the sense that you were kind of bombarded and blasted with all these menus and congratulations, you walked 5 feet, here's some coins and stuff, that type of thing. Combat is flashy and satisfying. It's simple enough that you can basically just button mash and feel like you're a badass. That can get you through some of the easy encounters, but for some of the tougher bosses, you're actually going to have to get good. You find the first major boss after the tutorial in this like upside down city with this red glow, and I don't know where I am, but it looks pretty fucking cool. It's really the complexity of all the systems and numbers and leveling mechanics that kind of takes away from the core combat. In some ways, the complexity of the game can feel detrimental to your ability to just enjoy this really fucking cool martial arts game. Quick question, any of you big into like firearms, history, war? If you are, I bet you can tell pretty quickly when a game or movie fails to be historically accurate, or when the mag catch is not on the right side of a gun. That's how I feel with martial arts. It's kind of like a sixth sense, isn't it? Where you can look at something and tell when it's not being authentic to your lived experience or knowledge of a subject. Where Winds Meet passes the sniff test flawlessly. They hired this guy named Stephen Punk to work on the fight choreography and the moveset. And that's why it feels authentic to me, because these are weapons that I have trained with. This guy has been working as a stuntsman and action choreographer since the age of 16. He is 71 years old, and he understands that there's a difference between a martial arts function in a film versus video game. It's that perfect blend of real martial arts, practical techniques, amplified by fantastical elements that I love so much. Part of the reason why I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, currently, Where Winds Meet has a very respectable rating on Steam, and daily player counts are looking at around 160,000. Let's talk about the community. Can I just show you the funniest part of this game? Kanye West was here. The One Piece does not exist. So Where Winds Meet is set in like 10th century China, but everyone can leave messages, comments, likes, and even selfies, as if we all have cell phones made out of bamboo. There is like no filter on the chat. Let me tell you, they have a very lenient filter. It's not like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, where you can only choose from a handful of different words and terms. You might encounter a dog, for example. Let's see what the messages say. Nothing like exploring 10th century China and encountering 21st century meme culture. But that's part of the fun. You never know what's around the next corner in terms of like video game secrets, but you also never know what type of crazy shit you're gonna read when it comes to these comments. So having this number of players is a great benefit to the game. It makes you feel like you're sharing this world with others, except those players don't need to be in your world for you to get that feel. It's the little things like beating a boss, going through the next hallway, and then reading a message from some other player congratulating you. The way this game is monetized is cosmetic only, and they made sure you have multiple ways to show off your drip. And the character creator is pretty bonkers how many options you have. I looked at this and I was like, nah, I'm sticking with default. That's too much for me. But I always find games like this that let you share your creativity with other players be a huge benefit. It gives you a reason to participate with the community and feel part of it. On the monetization side, there are gacha mechanics. I've never been a huge gambler, especially when it's like items and currencies. I don't know what they do. But if there's an outfit that's really cool and it feels like it's worth it, then I might buy it. If you're gonna have microtransactions, I just want to be able to buy the thing that I want, and that's it. One look at this game's UI is enough to make a man think. There is so much on screen, as you'd expect from an MMO, but what I often find myself doing is hitting F6 and playing the game like this. It's kind of nice. You even get options at the start for how much you want the game to hold your hand. It's like that Elden Ring UI meme, except you can choose between both of these. You want the over-designed checklist of activities scattered across the map, or do you want to keep it simple and basic? Disable all those pesky icons so you can take in the scenery and explore at your own pace. The choice is yours. Now, the menus in this game are a never-ending labyrinth. I will find parts of the menus that I can't even remember how to get back to. It is over-designed in some aspects, and that's my biggest critique. Perhaps it's a cultural thing. This game is made by a Chinese company, so they probably have different tastes and expectations over there. I can respect that. It's just not what I'm used to, and it is a lot to learn, take in, and understand that it might be overwhelming for some players who prefer to be slowly acclimated to all of the game's mechanics. especially when you're constantly showered with rewards, currencies, crafting, and upgrade materials, and you just started playing, you don't know what any of this stuff does or is used for. And therefore, when you first start playing, you don't really know what's valuable or not. It's totally free, and the combat is fun enough that the overcomplicated menus and designs are nowhere close to being a deal breaker for me. Now, for those looking to explore a massive world with tons of activities, you want to get lost and go back in time to 10th century China, you will be pleasantly surprised with the amount of content here. The world is almost too big. You can't walk 30 seconds without finding something interesting. A mob of enemies, a secret cave, this magical cat that gives you a puzzle to solve and then rewards you. You might ground pound on some rubble and uncover a secret cave where you then have to light torches to illuminate enemies, fight through it and clear the rubble. There are seemingly hundreds of mini games. Yes, you can fish in Where Winds Meet. I've done it. I'm a champion. But there's also sumo wrestling, platforming time trials. You've got a whole fighting arena. There's this doctor mini game where you can heal animals to improve your own healing flask. You know, in a lot of RPGs, there are those NPCs that are kind of just part of the background. You know, they don't really do anything. You can't interact with them. And that is not the case for Where Winds Meet. I find the majority of the NPCs, or at least half, you can interact with. They might give you a quest, they might sell you something, they could give you tips, points of interest to explore, rumors to go check out. There's dueling arenas, marksman competitions. This big city in the middle, Kaifeng, is ginormous. I don't know if I've seen a city as big as this one in any game I've played. You can play musical instruments and with like rhythm game mechanics, shake down scam artists in the street. Some of these mini games are pretty fun. Others are a bit questionable. This debate mini game where you use cards like Magic the Gathering, not a big fan of that one. But it's kind of like that Michael Scott quote. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Where Winds Meet takes a lot of shots. It takes a lot of them. Doesn't always hit, but most times it does. Now, MMORPGs are not really renowned for their storytelling. It's usually serviceable, just enough to get you immersed in the world. But unlike even World of Warcraft, this game has some very impressive cutscenes. They also have this really funny feature where you can triple the playback speed of dialogue scenes.
How could it be fully effective?
Right.
So if you end up not caring about this story, at least they give you the option to breeze past that as fast as possible. But I often find myself just kind of looking around and watching the behavior of NPCs. The environments are wide and varied, with giant statues and towers in the background, all just waiting for you to explore. The movement abilities like triple jumping, flying, wall running all make the game very seamless to explore. There are fast travel points, but I have yet to use them. It's that kind of game. So I'm genuinely surprised by the quality of this game. Even more shocked that a game of this caliber has seemed to slip through the cracks, gone unnoticed. Not anymore. These days it feels like over here in the US we get $70 mobile games, but Where Winds Meet is the opposite. It's a free AAA game. It don't make no sense. Maybe it's a sign of the times or the differences in culture of video game industries from other countries, but I doubt any US-based developer or publisher is going to put this much effort into a game only to make it free.